다시 제래 어이버드 상가 그러면은 뭐도 제제된 바 잡제진 받은 바보서는 이제 저라서 나라나만도 자라고 기회에 손으로 저도 조절봐 진짜 줄라 상상으로 돌려서 소바달라라도 그 제가 많이 어디 저 그들이야 상사로 어디 연예들이나 마마멜라 저가 봐봐 보면 좀 봐줘한 봐 다줄로만 넘어고 와데 오늘 주제가 보내서 가지고 그냥 아샘 저거서 또 제배야 잡을라는 저라서 와데 선통도 맞잖아 춥든지 그냥 처음에 보죠 지라서 생진도 나녀다 다치나 나봐 조제는 다다서 드리다인 주로 넘바라 다 땅고 조성가 말아버지로 소고냐니 이것도 요노 시야래 드리나 갔다 왕가니 드리 왕탕제 전도들이 라이고 송톡的圣经的论啊医生马达的圣经的论啊医生的他把来个什么名字马达的论啊医生的这里面都从到了人这里这从的那都从的撒当缺当主拉说吧这呢这里点没做过用这种，这里没做的了，没有这里他把还有个种头的，谁不这里点他了，没有的，这里点没么吃的这里名字叫王上，这里王红的上是啥的，这上个有的，这里大是大光就生这那样，这里点名字给他们忘记，我不知道我查要的，这里讲的，通过生命大的生命，这里我把人啊没的，我把的啊人这话搞的这个，这里老早是把大长期的上这个生活能力用过有的，这里头他用到把它定的，他把定的不弄的。甚至个啊，当个上这个松，其实我把的大娃的，大娃哥的，大娃女同志，大娃生同志娃的，我把马同志娃的，就把女同志娃的，这啥个松头就没用了，这里他把来个松头，这里接了这个大娃我把就把松，这样的我的啊，成这娃的。
Dharma friends, today I'm going to give a brief introduction to the review, the meditation and the conduct based on Milerapa songs. And so yesterday we have received empowerment, and all empowerments are included within one empowerment. And the purpose of any empowerment is to ripen, to mature the impure body, speech, and mind of sentient beings into a pure body, speech, and mind of the deity. So it is just like sentient beings are like the seed of a flower. And when that seed encounters good soil and water and warmth, then all the qualities of a flower will emerge as the seed ripens. And so this is another example that shows that sentient beings can ripen into the pure body, speech, and mind of the deity. And in order to ripen or mature, we receive the ripening empowerment. And according to the secret mantra tradition, first we receive empowerment and then the instructions. And so now the instructions are such as the instructions on the view, meditation, and conduct. They are the method for ripening, for maturing. So as for the view, meditation and conduct, the view matures, ripens mind, and the meditation ripens the speech. So meditation and speech are connected. So it is explained in the scriptures, the actual words of the Buddha. So through the words of the Buddha in the scriptures, the view is ascertained. So the view is the mind. So the nature of the mind is ascertained through the scriptures. And then the practice, the meditation is related to the speech. A sentient being's speech is also related to the Buddha's speech. And one's conduct, one's activities are related to the body. And so if we practice the view, meditation, and the conduct, then our body, speech, and mind can ripen into the pure body, speech, and mind of the deity. So we have to know how there is a connection between the view, meditation, and conduct and the pure body, speech, and mind. Oh, sorry, I was cut out. Sorry, after min mingi keba kara yori tichilang cheso. Mimma mingi keba kara yori ngishengala min deni mimma mingi keba kara yoris ti partu kosoro mashatini cheso.
Mami ci va della da mami mi passa para la camera da tango de daji ni wa mami bare daji ni mami ba de chago dodo ni wa tata da daji ni yore seri la de runga esto tade yore mi da mi de sembra chago de show ni me ba hapon eso me bataba todo eso me bataba todo eso que te tratando Tawadi, Mammy, Dayi, Yore, Mimpercent, Dayi, Niminatida, Tawabi, Mingo, Yore, Cosone.
Cosa. The Dawati Chesanta, does he? So sorry, I was cut out for like 10 seconds. So when we speak about ripening, being ripe or unripe, so what we need to ripen first is the mind. And we ripen the mind through the view. And so what is it that causes the mind to be unripe? It's the thought that I exist, this I, this me. And due to this, beings take birth in the three realms of samsara, the form realm, formless realm, and the desire realm. And all of these beings have a mind. And this mind is grasping at a self, a me. And because we perceive a self, there's also other. And then there are limitless others. For example, there are limitless animals and so forth. Even though they all have separate bodies due to their individual karmas, their mind is one and the same. So it is said that karma, cause and effect is the natural expression of the moment-to-moment thoughts. So the bodies are this natural expression. The cause is within the mind, and when it is in the mind, then the result will naturally ripen. So, for example, just like the seed of a flower ripens into a very specific flower, white or red or blue and so forth, depending on what is the seed. And so similarly, various experiences and bodies in the 6 realms of samsara manifest. We have the 3 higher realms and the 3 lower realms. And the cause of these 6 realms are the 6 afflictive emotions. What causes birth in the 3 higher realms is pride, desire, jealousy. And then what causes birth in the lower realms is ignorance and hatred and greed or stinginess. So these 6 afflictive emotions are like the seeds of a flower. They're ripened within the mind. But then when the mind is transformed and really matures, these afflictions become the 5 wisdoms. So what is the difference, again, between mature and immature? The difference lies in duality or non-duality. When there's a dualistic perception, the mind is like an ice block, like a solid piece, and that has to be melted. And when the ice block melts, then one realizes that there is no such a solid piece of a self, then one realizes non-duality. And that's really the view. The view is a view of non-duality. And for this reason, we say that it is the view that matures the immature mind. Immaturity now is a dualistic grasping at self and other.
The one community, Tango, living better, but the Jalen, so I got the younger one to look at Pachati, part-time, now like now on Charangoyore, Ranga Pacha, look at Tata into Pacha, G, right now on Charan to look at Pachati, Nala, Dadon to teach a top by young Mepella, Chadanga down the jail. in the Bachimore, Rami Gar Toya Solution, Lamsan Chapachin, Chapata Doma Jelly, Ram Magasa, Yalo, Long Johnson Control over the Chadam Damari Vetri, Lomati Tamambo Yomari, Lomati Tam take it, the Mozo. Rangi passing the Passato by Dogore, Lumati to Topa, the Motopa Yogore, Territory Madi, Oman baby home, woman baby home, Pacha coming Yogore, dry and Baladriti, Managaranda, Nimbo Granda, this Jazzer, dance about Tamchi, Sap the Chong Rory, Nami Parsibala, so, Triton Nami. Three the Bambi Wacha, the dish of the Pachas after this seemed to put the Pacha that now in about the Chipper day on your now in about Chipper day on, till now in nobody, that is now in about Dogam Taki Tang. Nga me pa nga yin tsa pa asong sa ki chong te je ke nga si pa da kan le lu ma re nga ma re ta sem le lu te te kang tong da ba te nong nong kang da ba to yo yo le na sem ti ko ro le sem ti ko de te de dong cha ba ge ji se zhang le te ta da de ngo dang chi ma da ba ji ji ne te ni cha ba pa cha ro go le ro lo de ka le ro de le chi na zu ko nya sa na le te nya sa to你空nhà有嘞，这看来也不了，这里你也不靠着嘞，这点呢，现在这个文化那个节嘞，这里的，他没那么干的，这里当谁不干你看个那玩意怕那个这这样样没那么干不着呢，这里有那个节个有嘞，这里那个节个有嘞，这里一里这里，这里那个节话这样这里，让给我上到过这里，怕紧了这里。生活一错了，你错个搞个这里，真把这当没话好好的内容有嘞，生活把下来，这生活那个是你的，你看个少啊，他们现在就把这当生活了，这都错啊，就把这当都上下过了，这银行当钱一样，当我。这块里，你看个拍差的钱啊，这个东西上个有啥个了？这这么大的。我打算你下次我得到白茶下个都做白茶的下的，那都是那样。这下讲了这个里这打什么当，但身体吧的这里把这个的这个用可乐的他帮着我来下的，同就没了，这点白茶有了的，这里茶到我上白茶的，这里也年纪错了，吃瓜成家里说了当啊。茶单个多把这多把茶嘛不，这把茶的人钱了，这里下了不就的，这里打，另外你把茶的亚忙呢，这里的甚至当嘛的，这生活内容了点了，他生活内容的点了这里，没办法忙过马街，这里打生活内容的这个嘞，那多的生嘛嘞，那多的生嘛嘞，生活一下子我嘞。讲多少人？这里但那不考虑两三用两三没着了，这巴拉达嘞。这里讲多少公送，这里讲多少巴拉达，那多巴拉达嘞，是讲多少嘞？差过了，这那多怎么大不上去？这生的了，这生呢的，没办法嘛，我嘛这个生的了。这里生的难看上去，这些了。说通的，这些不能弄来的，还讲我要来的。
So during the empowerment, in the beginning, first the body is ripened through the generation stage, the visualization. We're visualizing the form of the deity again and again. And in this way, we are purifying the karmic imprints of the ordinary body. And the appearance of the pure deity remains within our mind. So eventually we forget about the ordinary body. There's this habitual tendency of identifying with this ordinary body. And this tendency is forgotten when one always visualizes the deity. And then with the speech, by reciting the mantra of the deity, we purify the grasping, these thoughts that grasp at objects by associating terms with the actual things. And so due to this grasping at sound, we develop many thoughts of attachment and aversion. And actually, one word that is heard actually is very powerful. It can create a lot of feelings in us. For example, if a friend that you like very much says something, immediately you like that. Immediately you feel attached to that, and you feel very affectionate toward what the person is saying. But then when a person who you dislike tells a story, then instantly you get angry and you feel resentment. So there's many thoughts of attachment and aversion triggered by words, and then also many imprints of ignorance that are placed into our mind that come from kind of indifferent, neutral kind of words that we hear. And so in this way, we continuously place these imprints into our mind, which defiles the mind. And so then when we recite the mantra, for example, we are saying Om Mani Padme Hum, then we are not placing an ordinary karmic imprint in the mind. In fact, we are purifying these karmic imprints. So even though it also is a sound, the mantra is sound, the mantra is the kind of a natural sound. And this sound of the mantra actually removes, it purifies the karmic habitual imprints in our mind. So therefore, it is the mantra that ripens the speech. And so when body and speech are ripened, then there is no grasping at forms and sounds. And then all there is still this imprint of the mind, which only really is this thought that I exist as I. And so then for that, we should investigate and look at the mind. Is there really an I? Does this I really exist? Actually, the Buddha had said that we are grasping at a self that doesn't actually exist. So this me, what is that, this me actually? You are not your body and you are not your speech. So then you might think that I'm the mind. So then when you analyze this, first you look at the body, and the body is really just like an empty house or like a guest house. It will be left behind. So actually there's really just the mind, and it's really the mind that follows various tendencies, wishes to experience feelings of happiness and suffering. And it does that because the mind is grasping at the existence of a concrete reality and the various these conceptual structures in the mind. So for example, when you go to sleep at night, your body lies in bed, comfortably sleeping, and especially if you had some good food, you will sleep well. But the mind doesn't actually stay there. The mind continues to engage in activities. This is what we refer to as the dream state. So the appearances, the perceptions of the waking state subside, and one falls asleep, and one then goes into the dream stage of the night. And while the body is sleeping, the mind continues on, just like at daytime, to engage in all sorts of activities. And then it is through the power of this mind's liveliness that you always come to the natural state of the mind. And if clarity is sustained, you recognize the deep sleep state. However, normally when we come to a deep sleep state, we are just abiding in a state of dullness or unmindfulness. So when you really reflect on that, then you recognize that my mind actually continues to engage in all kinds of activities. So therefore, it's the mind that is engaging in all of the activities. And the activities the mind engages in at night are exactly the same as during the daytime. And my experiences of happiness and suffering are exactly the same. So the daytime perceptions, for example, are just like a movie, a TV show being projected, and you're watching it. And therefore, whatever appears is illusory by nature. Later, when I die, it will be just like that. Then later, all these karmic imprints in my mind will manifest, just like the daytime experiences in my life. So when you reflect in this way, you understand that everything really is, every experience really is the projection of your own karmic imprints within your own mind. So the mind itself is like a camera, and where the whole film is stored, which are those imprints, and then your experiences are projected as the film, as the movie. And so you can't see the mind with some camera, but it places imprints of attachment, aversion, and ignorance into the film roll, and then these manifest the various coarse and subtle tendencies. Then manifest, for example, in the form of the dreams that you're having at night. So if, however, you purify these and you do not place imprints of body and speech into the mind, then the mind remains clear. And then when you look at the mind, you can see the nature of the mind. When you look at the mind right now in this very present moment, where all past thoughts have stopped and no future thought has yet arisen, when you look at that very present mind, what is it? The mind, the thoughts are not the nature of, are not your mind. The mind is at the fundamental basis, or it is like an ocean. And when you recognize that, then thoughts, when they arise, will instantly dissipate, just like a wave on water. So then you recognize, oh, the mind is just like an ocean and my thoughts are just like waves. And when you see that, you understand that thoughts come and go, they are impermanent. But when you look at the actual nature of the mind, that remains. Even when all past thoughts have stopped and no other future thought has yet arisen, that mind remains just like space. And seeing this is called the special insight, or the vipassana. It's the actual nature of the mind.
대양처럼 생긴상제 생기들 생긴 나시 생기들잖아. 돈다고 대발라들 나리 소비면은 저다 나와서 그런 거 세요가 나와 담지 생그지도 지 아티 가야지도 되게 타고 생는 딱제다. 랑가 생는 예니 딱제다. 뭐 좀아게 생다 랑가 생이 딱제다. 누가 대와 누가 동네 초하고 직장 내가 제가 수능한 것도 없고 르기 제발이 마도 저배들이 대통령이 제대 제발 내땅 제발이 생지바데 따지는 예송좀 감성 생지바데 때려야 가리끼리 어딜 감성 진지라고 좀 가이송거든 나고랑 그 생각대로 나시 생각 리얼에 소문나 딱 가이도랑 생각 쳤대요 다른 생각 남동 대반 망과 마치 집안에 생포하면 다양되는 거 보는 신뢰돼 남동 매번 생대 남동 매번 생대 대자 유는 뭐 딱제 동동용만 내에서 상통 때문에 동과 인발로 사람이 신이 희망 싸워서 다 토는 거요래 진은 신뢰 공부를 상통을 해서 저 마시 샘선 뒤에 다들 나와 담지 샘들 고대장만 세고 찾대요래지 찾들들이 샘 속하고는 샘이 싸움을 막다들 랑그 샘 직접 남도 직접 매번 샘 这背讲了，哪怕到了唱了，哪怕那么唱歌嘛，我当不然个是不是哪怕到了差点这下过来，但是不那路多的这了些个有人，那到这半个忙我们就打上头到这他到了，直接到现甚至哪怕前面把差着有人，这到下过什么，我都是不那路这实际个场地中间的中的这嘛一点了。这个这种这个嘛，这可能就那没吧，这里就那没吧，到底长的大这个大概有日子。
So we call it the nail of the view, and so then when you really understand this, then all doubts will naturally be removed, and you will be in a state of certainty that is unchanging at all times. So it is called a nail because of that, because it is steadfast and unchanging. Like when you nail something into the wall, then it stays there steadfastly. So it is said that look at how all appearance and existence gather within the mind. So everything that appears and exists is included within the mind. So that is the view. And so all that appears and exists is the 6 realms of samsara, or in brief summarized, there's 3 realms of samsara, and basically everything that appears and exists. And it all is summarized further into mind. Everything arises from within the mind. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices regarding the ultimate truth, it says, appearances are one's own mind. So all the outer appearances are created by one's own mind. And so then what is this mind? Then you analyze this mind. What is the nature of the mind? For example, if you compare yourself to an ant and my own mind. So we have different bodies. That is due to our level of merit. But really, we both want to be happy, and that we share in common. And we do not want to suffer, that we share in common. And we want to survive, that we share in common. It's just that we have different bodies and different experiences of happiness and suffering due to our diverse karmas. And so when you think about that, you see that the mind is really one and the same. My mind and the mind of a being in the lower realms is the same. And everything arises from this mind, and therefore everything can fit in the mind. Everything is encompassed by this mind. So all appearance and existence is included within the mind. And so then if you look at what that mind is, from which everything arises, again and again, just look at the present moment of the mind. And there's a moment then when all past thoughts have stopped and no future thoughts have arisen. And you look at this space between the thoughts again and again. And through this looking, first you develop a state of shamatha, of calm abiding. And then continuously abiding within that state for a longer time, you then begin to analyze and really look at with clarity, what is this mind? This mind when there are no thoughts, this thought-free mind, what is that? So then you gain insight, which is vipassana. And when you gain insight, you recognize a mind that is completely empty and pristinely clear. And so in this way, you see the nature of the mind by having first cultivated a state of calm abiding. And then through that, you have gained insight, and then it develops later into insight, where you, with clarity, you see the nature of the mind. And so, and then this is how you see that everything that appears and exists is included within the mind. So therefore also then it says mind itself is the continuous, as the second one, the continuous nature of clarity. So again, you recognize that when you look at the mind in the present moment, when there are no thoughts, and then you clearly see it like space. And when you recognize, sorry, the mind is like space, then you see that there is nothing that is not encompassed by it. So in this way, you analyze resting in a state of vipassana. So it is through this abiding in the present moment, where there are no thoughts, that you recognize that mind is no different to space. And that recognition is to recognize the view, which is the natural state of the mind. And gaining certainty in the view is a certainty that is free of any doubt. So even if the Buddha himself were to come and tell you that's not what it is, you would not change your certainty. You would have no doubts. And so this unchanging state is what is given the name Vajradhara.
얘가 무성을 받아서 사람의 셈 싸우지 하고도 싸우지 뭐 동발이 무성을 받아미지 다치를 시구나 나상 주미 요데 시구를 시주면 남카나지 직접 이었던 가도 요 말이지 요 매제 시구를 싸워 하고도 요래 제가 싸우랑 이제 동바랑 이제 싸워지这不怎么样样子，他才谁说中间的他动手就这种，这这了，他大的中嘛不有的嘛多了多少多了说这里，到那中场变成大客气的，还是个有啥态度，给他们样弄这种，这个说这有嘛的，可是样他弄着了。没咱养来就这样的，养没咱们就养这些，不说养就他这里花茶都有的，到了东多他不用来，这上去就一点就光把这里那上就没大气一到这了这，大不他当这了，我东往南看到了这，我大不就这上面那个了，大不就用了前面就我当这做不这个搞的。上去烧了一些，这烧哈国头就这哈国这个南边个插的这里了，这是他烧东手就跟他插吧的这样我用没把大的，那的啥叫什么我做了这里边，让哈国嘛那些垃圾用嘛的说，哪里就这样用嘛的说，나를 매봐, 싸움도 매봐, 교도 매봐, 시합는 거 동호진이 다 생각 내놓고 한 거了대도 다 기본도 되는 생각하고요. 그러니까 농민 탐지는 또 그러고요. 그래도 다 차단 그러고요. 지금은 차단 탐지더니 첫 차에는 차로로 관련됐더니 적도고요. 저는래도 태성 제사는 니요는 들이 차단제요. 니지용은 다진용은 그 생포는 내려가시는 니메와다 하고네 따따는 거 니메와 하고는 나지 건데 탐지라고 세주시 소발에 따따다들이 건데 이 생다들 주발에 생진이 정말 주발에 제일 무슨 매발다 아성 제일 많이 주점 매발다 제일 무슨 매발다 아성
And then it says, mind cannot be identified. So first you have recognized that my mind is clear in nature and empty in essence. And thirdly, it cannot be identified. Cannot be identified means that you cannot verbally or conceptually express it at all. So therefore it is said to be inexpressible, being beyond words and thoughts. You cannot speak of it in an affirmative way, saying that there is something that exists, because it is just like space. having no shape and no color. And yet you can also not say that it doesn't exist, because there is a clear knowing capacity there. So the mind is clear. The nature of this clarity is empty. And the nature of emptiness is clarity. And that is often depicted as the Samantabhadram Yab-yum, as an example of this unity of clarity and emptiness. So that's the view. And generally speaking, there are many mistaken views. There are views that are, for example, there are misconceptions, there are wrong understandings, there are partial understandings, and so forth. But in brief, to summarize all mistaken views, they are summarized into either being eternalistic or nihilistic views. So somebody who is holding eternalist views thinks that everything exists. Everything is really there. And that is mistaken, because things do not inherently exist. Such a person falls into an extreme. And then some think that nothing really exists. But then again, there is karma, cause and effect. And so again, if one denies that, again, one will take birth in samsara. So such a person will not realize the ultimate truth. So therefore, the enlightened intent of the Buddha is inexpressible, beyond words and thoughts. It is the mind that is clear and, in essence, empty like space. And it is that mind that is clear and empty that these two clear away all mistaken views. So the natural clarity of the mind clears away the mistaken view of nihilism, because it's not that there is nothing. There's also clear knowing. So that's the natural clarity. And yet everything is empty like space and all pervasive. And so when we are introduced to Mahamudra, we are introduced to this mind which cannot be identified. And it cannot be identified also implies that it is something that only you can know yourself. You cannot express that. You cannot tell anyone else really about it. You cannot put it into words. You cannot actually even think about it. There is no thought, there's no word that could really actually describe this mind, which we call the perfection of wisdom or transcendent awareness. And it is that mind that creates everything. It is this mind that creates all suffering. All the thoughts are what creates suffering. It is our thoughts of hope and fear and attachment and aversion that create all suffering. And the view is like hot water. When you put ice blocks into hot water, they will instantly melt. So all these thoughts of hope and fear and doubts in the mind will melt. And what you realize non-duality. So that is then when you see that within the mind, self and other do not exist, that is what we call having gained certainty or confidence in the view. When you realize non-duality, you realize that all appearance and existence, samsara and nirvana, all arise from that mind. So therefore, the mind of all beings in samsara and nirvana is a single one. And this mind is inexpressible, being beyond words and thoughts. It cannot be expressed in any way. So this is called the nail of the view.
No, never been Jacob, Nanga Jacob, the Nagi Jacob, the Teno. The Kaza gave the Naga Kamba nine or three nights, nine to what they said the deep cha the Uribot Esmotini, Chalonagi cha the Chalon the cha the Talatin Chin Mambrion, some punk, some Jackie Jack and Napi, something. Jetta the Zoe or the Malangusation. This says some Jackie Napi, something. Dan triple one bacha shayo hako yore. So each other the chicken toya yomarang leg round young temato. There teton sunny unit or Malam Gabbe. Torture the Chipachi young Dr. Todo and the Gay Mataba, take one Mabosheki or the Yena Ranga Sengi, Dan Donna Ranga Seng comes from the chapter, comes from the sending sender Ranga sender. The Chipachi is a hack or touch on that was a tolerance.
So everything that appears and exists is included within the mind. Everything that appears and exists is the entire outer universe and all the inner sentient beings, all in the outer material world. And the way we perceive this world is due to our collective karma and our collective karmic tendencies. So, for example, we have a collective perception of a country, for example. For example, we identify as I am an American. This is America. So this is a collective perception. And then we have individual personal perceptions. For example, this is my house and this is my money and so on. So we have grasping at that, and this is mine. And then these are those karmic imprints which are with us for a long time. And due to that, they have solidified into blocks of ice. And we can see that how the mind works in the dream when we're sleeping at night. So in the dream state, the mind creates a universe just like that. The same kind of, or a certain kind of universe just like this one. And the mind creates all sorts of sentient beings within that dream universe. So one sees that when one recognizes the luminosity of the dream state. And then one also recognizes that what appears in the dream is just a manifestation of the confused, deluded imprints in the mind. And after you have died, all of these appearances of this life, all perceptions, appearances of this life, none of them will be seen or left behind. And then it's just, again, the natural expressions, the projections of your own karma again that will be seen. So therefore, recognize that through the dreams, that it all is the same. It is always created by the mind, and just like a dream, in the end, will completely disappear, as it is impermanent, just like a dream. So in brief, this mind is the mind that pervades all the three realms of samsara. And therefore, all sentient beings in the three realms of samsara have the same mind. And if you gain certainty in that, then you have gained the view of the nail of the view.
Randa jinchi ba mi ne to go ti ki ba sa na de ni ti jinchi bi ma ne to go ta ti gombe je so ji ti gombe je so xie da na gombe je so de kai le gombe ti sem ti de ne ne cham cham ne me na to ma bo na to la ti ra ji ma bo na to ra pa ka ti yo se de ti yo so pong go yo ti cho a che ti cha dang to ba pe na 소매제에서 새로 좋아요 받은 남도 되지다 되게 참 좋은 거예요. 예를 들이 남도 취직 거라다서 남도 취직 거라다서 가리지는 다리 다 등만이 많이 남도 사용 대탑지 파 마디는 데리선 데리 마디 시바지 하고는 데나도 제 샤송상 초아지마 다들이 초 게마지 시마타들 되는 마요 대잖아 따로 제팅을 대리나 지지 따로 제팅을 대리로 고마한테 몸들이 진짜 semripa sardi ngana nena zemade ta de majora ta kwati de ne ore ne la tani na to chi jo kara da na to ji wa ta na to ra ye me pa ta de choda lap je de de che ro yo le ta bu ka le choda cha long je de cha de yo le na to lam sa che ma thap ne ta ti na yen bo de de ka le che to ko le ta bu ka le ni ma na ta che le na to chi jo kara da so 추적거든요. 다다디 추어서라 처럼이 예배 말이지. 너도 사람들이 죽어가라면 처럼 자성을 처럼하지 처리해야 돼. 너도 가까이 용과 가까이 용 말이 실제는 이시이지. 유몽 이시는 절대는 너도 다다 처음에 시작하나 다운을 되지. 뒤뒤 다지 딱 공부할 너는 공부할 때 맞아. 나도 샤와 탐지 학원에 시작하나 처음에 맞잖아. 그래서 다 컨트롤하나. 장 컨트롤이 근데 컨트롤에서 무엇이 맞아서 컨트롤되는 데 맞잖아. 이렇게 먹겠다 봐. 뒤로 잘. 나도 취직 걸었어. 하자. 나도 탐지 축걸어. 좀 되래지.
And then you have understood the view, and then you continue to abide within this view. Ideally, you sustain clarity on an ongoing basis, continuously day and night. And so next, then, this continuous abiding is related to the nail of meditation. So it says there are 3 nails of meditation. So what is this nail of meditation? It is the abiding within the natural state of the mind. It is the sustaining of the view. And so in the beginning, especially, sometimes we can't really sustain. Many thoughts arise, subtle and coarse thoughts arise, and we can't stay. For example, sometimes very powerful thoughts move the mind, thoughts, feelings of attachment and anger. For example, when we see a pleasant form, it steers our mind, and thoughts and feelings arise within the mind. And so, therefore, the first point here of meditation is thoughts are dharmakaya. Recognize thoughts as dharmakaya. So you rest within the view without distraction. And that means you do not grasp at whatever thoughts arise within the mind. So that is, thoughts may arise, but you don't think about them. Like, you don't begin to think of, oh, it's this, it's that, this is how it is, and so on. You don't conceptualize. You just let them arise, and when you recognize them with clarity, then the thought arises, you know there is that thought, and then instantly, through the clarity, the thought dissolves again. And it dissolves if you are able to sustain the view. And so the sustaining of the view, the sustaining part, is the meditation, is the practice. So the practice is to rest continuously in a naturally clear state of mind. And it's called a nail because when you have gained stability, then it becomes unchanging. Then you always stay. Then you always sustain. So recognize thoughts as the dharmakaya. That is, when thoughts arise, recognize that they lack true existence. And just like waves, they come and then they go again. So in the beginning, it is more difficult to just let those thoughts go. And the thoughts are much more solid, like ice blocks. But then as you habituate to resting in the view, then slowly these ice blocks will disintegrate. And so then finally you realize thoughts as Dharmakaya, and which means that it is just like recognizing that ice is indivisible from water. So actually, ultimately, therefore, the thoughts and the afflictive emotions are actually primordial wisdom. And that is what is meant with when we say transforming afflictions into wisdom. So that is accomplished when thoughts arise and then they dissolve and there is no feeling left behind. So if you always sustain the view, if you always remain within the view, then you have planted the nail of meditation. So whether or not you have planted that nail, so it becomes unmoving, depends on whether or not you're able to completely dissolve all the feelings and thoughts arising within your mind. So, for example, if you get angry at someone, and then instantly you recognize the anger with complete clarity, and then the anger is completely gone, and you're even able to laugh about it. So this is when you have really planted the nail of meditation. So then you see all thoughts as Dharmakaya.
남도 죽어 내면에 책에 남도 죽어야 랍토네 눈에 죽어 있는 안 하는 양용 것들을 랍보래 생각이 다 남도 특히 좋아하는 것이 없으나 또 남도 죽어야 될 것들을 랍토고요래 지금 랍나 배결에 책 죽어 고아던 또 남도 어떻게 누가 만나는지 죽어야 돼 남도 맞돌아 다 혼자서 아무리 다 내주는 건 거고요래 그런다도 이신데 유몽이신 자들은 저는 유몽지 초감이 막 병시방다는 이거는 저 하던 싸워들이 제방 메롱다고 이시데 제당은 뭐든 이시 예매만 제당의 이시 예매만 차대네 대하고들이 따지는 남도 죽어야 돼 되면 저기 시에는 저거에 이미랑 양념을 되게 따고 해서
So now we can easily say the words, "Oh, thoughts are Dharmakaya," but that's easy to say. But what actually has to happen is we have to gain an actual experience of that, and only when you have gained an actual experience of that, which means that only when the afflictive emotions leave no trace in your mind. When they arise, they leave no feeling in your mind at all, and you really have experienced how they are Dharmakaya. Only then can you really tell anyone thoughts are Dharmakaya, because only then will these words be beneficial. But then still, through these words, first we gain an understanding. And so we understand that if I liberate thoughts, then thoughts really are Dharmakaya. But if I do not liberate thoughts, then those thoughts become the cause for samsara. And then we will follow karma, cause and effect. But when these thoughts dissolve and without any feeling left behind, then these thoughts or afflictions become wisdom. For example, when you get angry, the quality of anger is that the mind becomes extremely clear, which is why we say that anger is the mirror-like wisdom. So therefore, the very essence of anger really is wisdom. It's indivisible from wisdom. So when you really experience that, then you can say that thoughts are Dharmakaya, and then it's also okay to say that, to tell that to others. But the point is that before telling that to others, it really has to become a personal experience.
Starting on the das or repartility, not to correctionate, chorhako, rang repartil, so rang easy to your father, something with us, so rang seminal rank, territory, tarpati shake say you're to what the Namshi ship for the Ishita repartimo, which way, the little repassing on the das on the 대독 초합에 가도 좀 잡았더니 그러고는 배는 거기서 뭐라는 소만 스승 직장만 짜 미도를 말 잡고 하면서 대답해서 배는 오 잡을 토로서는 생활을 제시요 말이지 매우 하고래들이 정당 지역에서 장을 늘도 토로를 대답을 성공하면 이번 내저 들을 빠살 딩하도 다데 근데 동네 매번 대화쳐 보지 제시사와 대답을들이 또 도지 참들이 딱 맹도진 탐지들이 이시다 도지 참도 때라서 보상게 저는 빠르는 거를 맹타대 이름이 돌아라는 세고 내려 갖고 왔다 따라 왔다 좁혀야지 그리고 빠사진한테 다서
Then secondly it says innate awareness is the continuous nature of clarity. So this innate awareness, it's Rigpa, is the awareness of whatever arises. So when whatever thought or feeling arises, there's full awareness of that. Rigpa is really a self-knowing awareness. It is said in the Heart Sutra, for example, that it is the sphere of one's own self-knowing wisdom. That is Rigpa. And it is facing inward, self-knowing. When the mind is projected outward and discerns outer objects, it is called the normal consciousness. So innate awareness, Rigpa, is the continuous nature of clarity. A continuous nature is that no feeling or kind of experience of happiness and suffering can change its color in any way. It just stays as it is. So in the Samantabhadra prayer, it also says, even if the 3 realms were to be destroyed, there is no fear. There is no attachment to the 5 desirables of the senses. So even if the world were come to an end, mind transcends birth and death. So mind will not die. Therefore, there is no fear of death. It's just the body that perishes. But awareness can never perish. And when that is seen, when Rigpa is seen, one experiences great bliss that is without any suffering at all. And that comes from realizing that the mind is beyond birth and death. And so this state of mind is given many different names. We call it Vajradhara, we call it primordial wisdom or awareness. But it all is Rigpa. It is this innate or intrinsic awareness. We may give it different names, but in brief, it's really just one and the same nature. It's the natural, intrinsic state of the mind. So this is this innate awareness, which is the continuous nature of clarity.
Rigpa sadhilanda da sumbitela, maki nyambari chakwa da sum, Rigpa de maki nyambari chokore sum, maki bade kaanre, pene dopa chemedene jimiri be sungaye, shirik ranchok ma chorvat, kibu jimi pozo kaya, tata dali ranchok ma chorsomade, rangi shirik ranchok ma chorva aso, shirik ranchok ma chorvade, nyumobo jiwang de ma shaona, the Yumo Diwan the Marshority, Yumo Dinatara, particularly Lelong Jacquiore, Tata Yumo Bari, Tata Yumo one the shortly Chadam, sending Yumo only shortly Karira, immediately, Tamis of Lasso Wateri, member Mabe Broker, Trinidad, La Sopa, Trinidad, La Lugoni, Tubaniba, Trinidad, Shergan, so much over the war. Not going to J. Crossing Trinidad, Shergan, so much over Ason, Shergan, so much over the Jopachimokia. Hajatachi was somewhere than to Milabe. She ran so much on the day up by Jim Goody. Kept in Jack to talk down and shuttered until it up with Dama Yomare song. The Tibu did Doctor Pajan the song. The Ripa, Sachin Ripami, Rapami, America, so she ran so much over. Ripa studying on the dart, she ran so much over it. Ransom put it. They are the Chapa, the Domina, down, you will Chadam Topa. She ran so much. They are all. The one summer band, Sashi, but someone, oh, they are wrong too. The mayority, they don't check me, but the town we are territory, Ripasa, dealing with the town, the day she was Yachimbo, only heavy.
So, innate awareness is the continuous nature of clarity, and then the unfabricated nature. It's all pervasive. So this unfabricated nature. So the nature of this Rigpa is unfabricated or uncontrived. And so what does that mean? So Rigpa must rest in its uncontrived state. Our awareness must abide in the uncontrived state. And so regarding this uncontrived state, this unfabricated state in the Dzogchen tradition, for instance, Jigme Lingpa, and also Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok, Jigme Lingpa so had said that do not let awareness lose its stability. So when clear awareness loses its stability, then we become controlled by the afflictive emotions. And that means we become controlled by the karmic winds. And becoming controlled by the karmic winds means that we follow our thoughts, these feelings of attachment and anger. And then just naturally, because we are controlled by them, just naturally we act on them. For example, with our speech, we then say really harsh and unkind things to somebody else, or we speak in a like resentful, like negative way, and we simply are disrespectful toward others and so on with our speech. And then also naturally, when we are controlled by these karmic winds, also our physical actions, our conduct, our activities will become negative. And so therefore it is a very precious teaching given in the Dzogchen by Jigme Lingpa, this point: do not lose the stability of clear awareness. If you have stability of clear awareness, then any thought or emotion can become liberated the moment it arises. And so therefore, Jigme Lingpa also continued on saying that, do not lose the stability of your clear awareness. There is no greater instruction than that. That's the greatest instruction. Not 100 scholars or 1,000 siddhas and so forth. None of them would have a higher instruction than that. Do not lose the clarity of your own awareness. And so this is also what Milerapa is speaking of here, this continuous nature of clarity that is to be sustained. And if that is sustained, if clear awareness does not lose its stability, then all these thoughts of attachment and aversion and so forth will dissolve. As it is also said in the Samantabhadra prayer, when lustful thoughts arise, do not grasp them as real, and also do not reject them. Just abide in a natural state. then awareness can hold its own. And so awareness holding its own is awareness not losing its stability. It's the same meaning. There's no difference. And so then when awareness is holding its own, when it is not lost, then anything becomes the same. Then whether it is an experience of happiness or suffering, it all becomes equal when mind abides in a state of clarity. And so then, as a result of sustaining such a continuous state of clear awareness, one gains an experience of vast, endless bliss. And so that is what is also explained in the Dzogchen teaching. It has the same meaning. And then there are three nails of the conduct. So now the mind abides in a state. When we engage in conduct, the mind then must abide in the state of a unified state of emptiness and compassion. And so emptiness is that when one has realized emptiness, one has realized that there is no self. And a quality of realizing that is that immeasurable compassion for others naturally arises. And naturally, one will not engage in non-virtuous activities. So that is a quality of realizing that there is no self. So then the 10 virtuous actions are not adopted as in they naturally arise. They naturally arise. So when you realize that there is no self, you realize also there is no other, and so therefore this natural state of compassion for all beings as one arises. And so this state of emptiness, which is unified with compassion, and from this naturally the 10 virtuous actions arise. Whatever you do with body, speech, and mind naturally becomes virtuous. And the 10 non-virtuous actions will naturally subside into the natural state. So because when there is self-grasping, then actually even though one might engage in a seeming virtuous act, it still is half non-virtuous due to this grasping at a self. So a quality of having realized that there is no self is that the 10 virtuous actions arise just naturally, and the 10 non-virtuous actions, without needing to abandon them, they just naturally dissolve into the natural state. And so it says here in number 3, there is nothing to be abandoned with antidotes. And so that is when the quality of only abiding in awareness that is clear and empty, only that naturally possesses, within that all good qualities are naturally complete. And only that is what naturally purifies all faults.
David also, Tatu David Kali, Nyade, Dr. Maid, Saji Rank send the Tata, send Sanji, so Rank send it. Ransi Saji, Oma, she is Ransi Saji, Sanji send the Rank Sikiva marriage, Nyade, Unit, Dr. Maid, Hova, you the Pandavate, Daji, maybe this will be a Tondona. just Hoa Bangjo Marin, Hoa Namdori, Bangjo Maris, Ransi Saji, Kota Cho, so 3 Rang 7 Rang 7 Saji, Tata Cho, 3 Jeff Days. Hello?
Oh, sorry, I have my thing off. Hello. So can you hear me now? Yeah. So then the 3 nails of the result of the fruition are the samsara is not to be abandoned and nirvana is not to be accomplished. So regarding samsara is not to be abandoned, nirvana is not to be accomplished. You recognize that your own mind is Buddha, and it is that mind from which actually nothing is to be purified and which has nothing to gain, nothing to add to it. It is just my own mind is Buddha, but I haven't realized this. So then, thirdly, your own mind is Buddha, and so when you realize that self and other do not exist separately, then there also is no samsara to be abandoned, because what is samsara? Samsara is just your own thoughts. And therefore, when you realize non-duality, then there is no thought, no samsara to be abandoned, because your own mind is realized as Buddha. That is the fruition. A fruition is when you recognize that my own mind itself is actually Buddha.
Lama Ransi Sanji so Jiri, Kani, good of Bonadina, Sini Regda Sanji, the Maricenti Horn Chanson, the Kani Regda, the Langsel Nail Rignity, Rakati, or Ragan the Rang Dos, but tell Sanji, this Sanji dollars. Marilla Dagi is the 7 Nero Matoba, 3,000 Hot or to Chado Yori, the Queen Sanji, not a young to Tamari Sanji. Bad body dog with so it's at a point of one of the Lord to Yore. Then you want to go some talks and have done the Tagon some Tentrachibo Yore. The other one go to Cherry Yore. Take the ritual number to Tashi Deliciorates. The number that gave it in Tachimbo Rich.
So also Jigdan Sumgan had said, I've realized that the Guru, my own mind, and the Buddha are identical. So when you have realized the view, the nature of the mind, actually there's no more need to look for an external Guru. So first you rely on the Guru who introduces you, so it must be a Guru with experience and with realization, and the Guru introduces you to the nature of the mind, and then you practice it, and then you realize that my own mind and the Guru's mind are indivisible. So my own mind, the Guru's mind, and the Buddha's mind are indivisible. Also, in the Samantabhadra prayer, it says when you recognize it, you are a Buddha, and not recognizing it, you are a sentient being wandering in samsara. So when you recognize it, recognizing is to recognize the nature of your own mind. And that recognition of your own true nature is Rigpa, or your intrinsic awareness. And when it is recognized, then you will attain enlightenment. You become a Buddha. On the other hand, when you do not recognize it, if you are ignorant of it, you will continue to grasp at a duality of self and other. And so therefore, not recognizing your true nature, you will continue to wander in the 6 realms of samsara. So it says in the Samantabhadra prayer also, to begin with, we are the same. You and I are the same. And not having recognized this, you have become obscured. So you should read the Samantabhadra prayer again and again, because it's very much related to this. And all of it is related, and the instructions, the introduction about the blessings of the empowerment of body, speech, and mind, as well as the view, meditation, and the conduct. All of these are really interconnected. So, my dear Dharma friends and the spiritual masters, Anidashi Dele.
Tata, don't sabla ko lava, ta sengma nyamni jeni mambo yore tamche ke, junda teni kunda tabo moramde nyamni karechinga, sengma nyamni jema tamche jewa chimbo yore, teni junda te yamga yamga lo, teni tera dholang jina, teni naga hako tuku yore, teni kaka hako wada, tonga hako wani, teni tonga sobo hako gore, tonga hako no teni tata tarange, 그러니까 심초하는 뭐서 나또 좋다마서 대다고래 대기지 뭐 요래 대 피다 버튼 요래 대be 과금 제 요래 그 공배 양철에 조배 탄동서 대대 용화에서 주반을 전들이 삼바된 경제들 저 주바 대기지 뭐 요래 다공 조선 돈나지 여기 기지 뭐 요래
And so it is something that is actually as a simple practice to perform, that is yet very meaningful. So we always speak about this practice of seeing the nature of the mind. And actually, when you read the Samantabhadra prayer, this prayer can really be applied to any of these practices. It's connected to the nature of the mind. So therefore, I encourage you to read it often and also to discuss the meaning of it with each other. And then a real understanding will arise. And so there's a difference between just speaking about it, kind of giving it lip service, and really understanding the meaning. And so of these two, we should really understand the meaning. And really understanding the meaning involves to be able to liberate those thoughts and feelings, those afflictive emotions that arise within the mind. So it's important to pay attention to that. And so you have heard many Dharma teachings. And when you hear Dharma teachings, when you know about them, that is a mere understanding. But this understanding also has to actually be practiced through continuous meditation practice. And then in the end, it has to be brought into our conduct, into our activities. And that's actually most crucial, that we bring the experience of the view that we have gained in meditation, that we bring that actually into our daily conduct, into our activities. That's really most important, that we really actually combine, we bring together the view, practice, and conduct as one, reflected in our activities.
We thank you from our bottom of the heart for your wonderful teaching and the empowerment. So yesterday, for the empowerment and the teaching all over the world, we have over 3,600 people touched, and many people very happy. They say thank you, and everybody said the empowerment is wonderful, the teaching is good. So people is very happy. Thank you, Rinpoche. Wish you long life, always with us.
And so, Vashelanin Takpane, Tudisha Shuayo, Tene Kazan Tering Wang Nayatan Kashinaya Bemase Yapocha song, Tene and Zambolin Kasa Kane Kunso Jogi Yorim, Tene Kazan me Suntong Tukyam Shuyorim, Tene me Tamape Kibocha song, Tene Conso Tamatudice, Mimambotudice Shugidos. Teni konso wang dang kachue pe apocha song teni lakitos pe kibul chung song lakitos teni toji shes teni tapane teni rinpoche kutse rinpo niya teni shuya teni nanso tapa nyamdo shuya menlam gyos.
And so now the Bodhicitta prayer on page 30. May Bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Oh, Mani Pepi Hom.
Oh, Mane Be Ore. 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 Gewan de yen yarda da Kere se wan rujane Rova je jamareba Te sa guba yo Everybody song God, thank you. Long life. Thank you.